Good afternoon, and welcome to the third Near Peer Career Panel of Season 2. I'm Mike Cohen, Partnership Manager for the New York Harbor School. Today's panel focuses on Harbor School's Professional Diving CTE program. This panel is brought to you by the Billy and Oyster Project and funded by the National Science Foundation and the John K. and Elizabeth W. North Charitable Foundation. Please watch the chat for a link and participate in the National Science Foundation survey. I'm going to hand it over to our moderator, Gabby, for introductions and our panel discussion. Please drop questions into the chat or the Q&A box, and we'll ask some of them at the end. So take it away, Gabby.
Hi, my name is Gabby Schwartz. I'm a current senior at the Professional Diving Program. So welcome to the Professional Diving Near Peer Career Panel. So today we're going to be discussing pathways into professional scuba diving. And so our panelists are from, well, we have industry professionals. So we have Joe Gessert, Mike Ajamin, and then our Harbor School alumni are Julia Kaplan, Brianna Aguilar, Quincy Lonnie Maloney, and then we have our current Harbor students, Moya Danoon, and myself, Gabby Schwartz. We're also joined today by Harbor School's professional diving instructors, Lenny Spargan and Joseph Jimenez. So I'm going to ask each panelist to take about a minute just to briefly talk about your backgrounds and how each of you got into your field of study or field and what your pathway was. So we'll start with Joe Gessert. If you could please put on your camera, and Mike.
Hello, Internet. My name's Joe. I work at New York Aquarium. I'm the dive safety officer here, which basically means that I supervise scuba diving and make sure that nobody's getting hurt. And that if somebody does get hurt, we got all the paperwork in place to prove it's not our fault. So it's kind of a cool job, and then it's kind of a creepy legal job too. And my career pathway was strange, as many of yours will be upon graduation. I graduated from high school. I had no idea what to do and didn't have money for college. And just kind of bummed around in my hometown for a while and eventually moved to New York and toured the world with a bunch of punk rock bands. I was really into music and worked food service in the meantime. So I was working a lot of part-time jobs or temporary jobs and then going on tour a bunch. And that was fun, but eventually it wound down. And in the mid 2000s, my wife started working as a teacher, and I got a job as a paraprofessional helping students in a classroom that needed extra assistance. And that was at Harbor School when it was still in Bushwick a long time ago. And eventually I started volunteering with the dive program, which was an after school club, and put in a bunch of volunteer time. So a lot of it was not paid. And gradually over the coming 2 years, became a dive instructor through that. And eventually took over the dive program, and the dive program became more full-time, and eventually we became more formal. And so I learned a lot on the job through that. But again, that wasn't my primary job. So a lot of it was just something I was excited about. And then after I left Harbor School, I got this other job at New York Aquarium doing very similar work. So I've been here for 5 years. That's all I got.
Great. Thank you so much. Now, could I please have Mike turn on your camera and Mike to tell us about yourself?
Sure thing. Thanks, Gabby. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Ajamian, and I am a professional engineer diver and associate project director for a company called COE North America. We specialize in marine, tunnel, and bridge engineering, and also offshore wind engineering, really all over the world. I grew up in Massachusetts and never dove at all. I was a commercial fisherman and assistant harbor master through high school and college, where I really kind of developed a pretty significant love and respect for the ocean. Went to engineering school because basically in high school, math and science were my thing. And so the guidance counselor pointed me towards engineering. And when I got there at University of Rhode Island, they have an ocean engineering program. So that's what I studied. After college, took the summer off, and then was sought out by a company named Ocean and Coastal Consultants. They asked me if I wanted to dive, and I said I never have, but I'd be happy to. So they sent me to a surface applied air diving training down at Florida State University. And when I got back, I started diving and doing inspection dives in New York Harbor. inspecting wharves and jetties and bulkheads and piers. That's where I met Lenny, and he taught me quite a few things. So I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, I probably logged about 1,000 dives or so in about 18 years worth of experience as an engineer diver. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on to our harbor alum. So Julia, can you please turn on your camera and mic?
My name is Julia Kaplan. I graduated from the diving program last year, and now I'm a student at Stony Brook in the marine vertebrate biology program. And I've been diving since I was 13, so before I got to harbor school, and harbor school really helped me get the certifications I needed and everything like that. Now I have up to my advanced and my Dan rescue, or not my Dan rescue, but my first aid from the CPR course that you do in harbor school. And on my own, I was able to go and get my whale shark specialty certification. So that's really helpful to me because now this summer I'm able to go down to Mexico with Dr. Guy Harvey and tag whale sharks.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Brianna, can you please turn on your camera and mic?
Hi, everybody. My name is Brianna. I'm an alumni. I graduated Harbor School in 2016. Since graduating, I received my undergraduate degree in biology at Nova Southeastern University in 2020. I'm currently moved back to New York City, and I'm a scribe at CityMD. And I'm also applying to a master's program to become a physician assistant. So completely different from scuba diving, but this summer I also plan to go back into scuba diving and volunteering and being a mentor at YDWP. It's a underwater archaeology scuba diving program down in Florida. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Quincy, could you please turn on your camera and mic?
Hi, my name is Quincy Lonnie, and I am a 2020 graduate of Urban Assembly New York Harbor School from the professional diving program. I'm currently a sophomore at Nova Southeastern University, majoring in exercise and sports science. I got into diving through my dad, who's originally a scuba diver, and I found the program really great. And Lenny took me under his wing and taught me everything he knows. And right now I do dives on the side. I have my open water, advanced fish identification specialist, and the full face mask certified.
Great, thank you. And then Moya, could you turn on your camera and mic, please?
Hi, my name is Moya Danoon, and I'm currently a junior in the professional diving CTE. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I've always had a passion for swimming. This passion kind of started at like a really young age, and it led me to the harbor school. I learned about the harbor school through my middle school dance teacher, and from there, from learning from her and looking up the school online, I decided that this was a perfect fit for me. I was determined to get into the school, and now that I'm here, I think I made a really great choice.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. Before we move on, I'm going to add a little bit more about myself. So I came to the harbor school actually because I wanted to be in the diving program. I learned about it through my middle school and also some family friends. And so currently I have my open water, advanced open water, and I'm hoping to continue in the dive industry. So I will be taking a gap year next year to try to get my dive master certification and get some experience in the industry before going to college on Honolulu, and I'll be doing environmental studies and communications there. So now we are going to have all the panelists, if you could please turn on your video. Thank you so much. Okay, so our first question is for anyone, and it's just, what is professional diving?
I guess I'll answer for that. Professional diving is where you get to work underwater in different areas, and people actually pay you to work underwater. And I know it sounds weird, but I would have paid them to go there. The work can be anything from being a safety diver in a movie to inspecting marine-borne structures to teaching folks how to go diving. It's a very wide gamut of whatever you want to do.
Thanks, Lenny. If anyone has a differing definition of professional diving, that would be super helpful as well.
Professional diving is studying the ecosystem around you and learning about the environment, how you can change it on a physical level by actually going down underwater and seeing the environmental impacts from society and making sure that you can make an impact to better it.
Great. Thank you so much. And now we have a question for our dive professionals. So there are many paths one can take in professional diving. So as an example, our industry professional panelists work in very different fields of zoology and offshore wind. So Joe and Mike, would you like to talk about what attracted you to your fields?
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, Gabby. So first and foremost, it was just an absolute like passion and desire to be around the water all the time. And then I went into the engineering side because of the math and science part of my brain. But there's just so much dynamics associated with the ocean and everything that's around you, and boat traffic and marine life. And then being able to work underwater. It's very, very rewarding. Yeah, that's my first part. Joe, you want to add?
I really like animals. That's all I got. The aquarium's neat because you get to be around the aquatic animals and also around lots of human beings, and they're both nice kinds of animals. It's a nice combination of the two.
For me, it's also an ability to kind of pair technical work with underwater physical work. It's nice to have that balance of being in an office, but also being in the field and being underwater.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice point, is that the diving careers tend to have some office work and some administrative work and some physical work and some thinky kind of brainstorming work about how to fix things or how to improve things. And it's nice to not know what your day is going to look like and have it be a little different every day. Today, I spent most of the morning trying to figure out how to get baby sea lions to stop biting the divers while they're vacuuming poop, which is not something that I thought, was a career option when I was a teenager, but it's neat. It's interesting. It's never boring.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And now we have a question for our alums. So what aspect of professional diving are you pursuing? And either that could be at college or work.
I would say for me, even though I'm not in the professional diving or marine space area, I am in the exercise sports science, so I'm specifically doing with care. So I took the portion of first aid certification and I took it more in a more deeper route, which is exercise and sports science, which involves injury prevention and care, which I learned a lot from watching Lenny and being able to take care of people under stressful circumstances.
For me, I think I'm doing something completely opposite than scuba diving. I'm going to be helping people and hopefully in the future in the OBGYN field, but I think I still want to be diving for the rest of my life. And the program I'm part of right now, it's going to let me be part of diving. It's an underwater archaeology program that I'm going to be doing every single summer for the next 3 years, which is really exciting. And I think being part of the scuba diving program and having such a tight-knit family has made me love diving so much that I want it part of my life for my entire life. So although I'm not in a career that's going to be scuba diving related, but I want it in my life some way or another.
I'm trying to go into data collection science, so I obviously need to be a diver to do that, but you also need to be a scientist. So that's why I'm in school right now for marine biology, because getting the diving certifications is really the easy part of it. That's going to be the fun part. Doing all the work now for the marine biology is what's important. So I'm pursuing that through Stony Brook. But yeah, the main goal is to be diving and getting samples and doing science.
And Julia, would you mind adding anything about project you're currently doing with that doctor?
Yeah, so there was an opportunity that I had to pay a little bit of money and go down to Isla Mujeres this summer for a couple of days and tag whale sharks with Dr. Guy Harvey, who's like a renowned scientist with tracking different types of sharks and big fish. So I'm actually going to get to go out like 2 hours out into the middle of the ocean and stay out there for like 7 hours with him on a boat and tag whale sharks and kind of pick his brain and get some ideas.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now we have a question for our current students, which is, have you decided yet what path you would like to take when you graduate from Harvard School?
So far, I have decided that I will be going to college. I'm not quite sure what my major will be yet, but I'm still keeping my options open. But since being in professional diving, I know that this will weigh heavy on what I will choose when I get to college.
Great. And for me, I am choosing to take a gap year, but I'm going to end up going to college in 2023. Just because of COVID and stuff, I really feel like I want to just like dive every day. So that's kind of going to be my goal for my gap year. But as far as a career, I really just feel like diving is like one of my large passions, given I don't really have that many dives, but every time I'm under the water, I love it. So I'm just kind of trying to find something that allows me to continue doing that as like some of my daily work. I'm not sure what that means for me yet, but I chose to go to a school kind of more based off location. It's not a school known for environmental studies or anything, but it is on Honolulu. So I'll be working with a lot of grassroots companies that aren't just water-based, but land as well. And just, I'm looking at college more from like a networking point of view to get to know different companies and professors and people. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And then our next question is for our professionals once again, and we're wondering, how has the pandemic affected your industries? If so, how?
I'll take that one first. The good thing about taking care of animals is that they were not really affected by the pandemic, so they had to keep getting fed and taken care of. And so I kept coming to work through the whole thing. We've definitely seen a loss of attendees for a while, but we're starting to bounce back up again. And the organization happily is big enough that we're able to get through that difficult moment.
For us, we're in a consulting based company. So we have clients that have to have projects for us to do. And at the beginning of COVID, we were still working on a lot of projects that from prior that than COVID started. But then it kind of caught up to us, and clients got gun shy about putting projects out and spending their own money. So there was a little bit of a lull that impacted us. Also, a lot of our underwater inspections are travel jobs. We go for anywhere from the Caribbean up to Maine. That's where my general region is that I work in. And so we were nervous to send crews out on the street and in the field, because if they caught COVID amongst the crew, then they couldn't work. And if you only have 2 people instead of 3, because generally each dive team comprises 3 divers, or a tender or a person to run the communications box. If one person got sick, that was it. And if you've got a very expensive crew out in the field and they get sick and you can't work, it can cause some issues with the finances of projects. So that definitely impacted us. Now we're seeing the other, like people are coming back out and they want to do a lot of projects. They're behind. Port authorities are behind on doing projects. And so we're seeing a huge influx of projects hit the street, which is really fantastic.
Thank you. And then our next question is for anyone to pick up. So what steps are being taken to make professional diving more diverse as an industry sector, and how can we help?
When they ask, or when they're asking more diverse, what are they specifically, and this goes out to the person or the people who asked the question, what specifically are you asking about? Is it the gender? Give me a little more information. I might be able to help you there. Did we get any clarification?
While we're
Gabby?
waiting for clarification, I can talk
Yeah.
about the aquarium industry a bit. The aquarium industry has traditionally been very much male dominated and very much white. And it's sort of oscillated from a more of a blue collar male white thing to a little bit more of a college educated white thing. But in the past couple decades, that's been improving, and it's still something that we're working on a bunch. And one of the ways that we're working on it more aggressively recently is through trying to do more local internships and actually coming up with funding to do paid internships, so that instead of just kids whose parents can pay their way through a bunch of different internships and educational opportunities, we can actually offer those opportunities to kids from the city and from CUNY and SUNY schools, so that we can have a little bit more of a pathway for kids from New York to do these jobs, as opposed to just the industry traditionally has been kids that go around when they're pretty young and do internships around the country and then do jobs around the country and kind of work their way up. And that's hard to do if you don't have some money backing you up. So if we can create better local pathways, because we have so many wonderful people in New York City, if we can create better local pathways for kids to come out of New York City schools and eventually end up in the aquarium industry, that's going to be good for the aquarium, because those kids are going to want to stay where they're from. And it's going to be good in terms of actually having our staff reflect the city better than it currently does.
Okay, ask another question.
Okay, so now we have for the students again. From your first day in professional diving to now, is there anything about the program that has surprised you?
Something that surprised me about this program is the way that it opens you up to so many different paths that involve scuba diving. Some that I've learned about so far is like scientific diving, recreational diving, and commercial diving. But the interesting thing about it is that each of these fields also have different kinds of jobs within them that are like really cool.
Great, thank you. For me, I think that I always knew I was going to love diving. And so there are definitely hard skills that were surprisingly difficult or easy or things like that. But more so, I feel like diving has really like empowered me and made me a lot more confident in my knowledge and just my power as a person. And I've really been able to use it as an outlet for my passions and just like be me and feel comfortable in this space and connect with my teachers and some peers that I might never have spoken to otherwise. And so now our next question is for students and alumni. So for any student or alumni who has experienced Harbor School both before and during COVID, how did COVID affect your professional diving curriculum, class, and experience?
Julia or Quincy, maybe they both.
I would say that COVID, I mean, from one of my point of view, COVID really took down the program when I was in it. I was not able to get the scientific diver certification or my rescue diver. And I mean, that's really out of anybody's hands, but we didn't get to dive in the harbor at all. We only got to dive in Bushwick and Dutch Springs. So it definitely took down the program, and it definitely took away the main parts of the program for me specifically.
Ask Quincy.
I'd say for me, I was a 2020 graduate, so I graduated during the height of the pandemic. So I had finished most of our job, but it also took away from me in the fact that our class didn't really get to leave the mark due to not having graduation, not finishing off a program, leaving a legacy. We did leave a true legacy, but not to the point where we could connect with other students before leaving, which was a big thing that I regret not doing due to the pandemic.
Yeah, I feel like for my class, I mean, we're back now, but it definitely has made a large effect on like our motivation and just like wanting to be involved, because we kind of missed out a lot. I was privileged enough to get another chance to go to the Bahamas and get in a couple dives, but I know that my peers weren't able to do so during COVID. So that definitely is a big thing. But I think that part of like quarantine and COVID, I kind of begun to look up to the students that I saw in diving, like my freshman and sophomore year, a lot more, and kind of like talk to them and lean on them about like what they had gotten to experience. And yeah, if anyone else would like to add, you can. Or that's everyone. Okay. So our next question is for anyone, and it's, what is the most exciting thing about either studying professional diving or working in this field?
Sorry, I might have cut off Moya.
Moya, if you want to add to the last question, you totally can.
Yeah, I was gonna say for my class, it kind of put a pause on everything. We were never really able to go diving, and I felt like it didn't really I felt like doing diving over Zoom wasn't as effective as it would have been in person. But during COVID, there was blended learning, which I attended, and I feel like that was really better for me because I was able to do a little bit of like hands-on work, like assembling and disassembling gear and like working in the gear locker.
Thank you. And I'll just repeat the next question. So what is the most exciting thing about either studying professional diving or working in this field? And that's for anyone.
I'd like to jump in on that. For me, working in the industry meant that the view from my office, which could have been a helmet or just a regular scuba mask, changed every day. And there's nothing more fun than jumping into cold, dirty, fast-moving water.
For me, I love all the animals and I love the water part of it, but I think the part that has been most meaningful to me is the teamwork part of it, both at Harbor School and at the aquarium, and this idea of people relying on each other to take care of each other while we're doing something that we think is important. I think there's some beautiful life lessons there, and that in general, it's a nice way to live, is being responsible for your teammates and doing a good job of taking care of each other.
I'd like to jump in and echo both of what Joe and Lenny said. And as you gain experience in the industry as a diver, that's going to be a common theme is the safety and the camaraderie of the folks around you and the dive teams. Also for me, one of the things is we're in structures, right? So we do a lot of diving underneath the FDR and a lot of marine infrastructure along Manhattan, and inspecting and making sure things are safe for people to drive over and operate on. And that's very, very rewarding.
And so now we are going to, I'll ask one more question. So to the professionals, throughout all of your school experience and professional career, what is the single most useful thing you learned? And did you learn it while in school or after graduation?
I'll start on this. As I would say, being multidimensional. Don't just be a diver. Be a diver and a teacher, or be a diver and lead a group or lead a team. But being multidimensional helps to climb the ladder at whatever you're doing and advancing.
I have trouble narrowing it down to one, but a couple things that I've learned that have stuck with me both through diving and I think from working with students in a high school setting are to do what you say you're going to do. It's really easy to make promises and really easy to talk a lot, but the kind of people that I actually generally want to work with and the kind of person I want to be is the person that follows through on what they say they're going to do and doesn't say things that they're not going to be able to follow through on. And the other thing is to identify problems before they happen and get them fixed instead of waiting to have to react to problems. Because especially in diving, a lot of what we do is preventative instead of actually remedying a problem. And it can be easy to sort of forget to prevent problems because they're never happening. Usually things are safe, but a lot of the job is sort of staying one step ahead of the game. it was very nice to be able to learn those lessons with students in a sort of real working environment and have all of us, I think, make progress in terms of being better teammates in those ways.
Great, thank you so much. So now I'm going to ask all the panelists to keep your video on while we open up a Q&A for the audience. So our first question from the audience is, what changes, if any, do you see happening in the industry, and what do you think they're like, why do you think they're happening?
I can keep talking. As I mentioned, in the aquarium industry, there's a big push for diversity right now. And I think that is happening because we've had a very limited pool of people working in this field for a long time. And many of us are well-intentioned, but we haven't actually put the nuts and bolts together to make the field more representative of the communities that it serves. And I think we're going to be a lot stronger once we have a much broader pool of people that are actually considering this as a job field that they can engage in.
Would anyone like to add on that one? Okay. Our next question is, what are the health risks of, or possible health risks of pursuing diving as a career and being a professional diver?
I'd like to jump in on that one, and that is any career you choose, you're in control of the risks you want to take, the risks you can mitigate, the risks that are unavoidable. I know that OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Hazards Administration, has manuals for every single career. For divers, obviously, we have other risks. I can't imagine office workers drowning. However, I can see an office worker dealing with chemicals and getting injured. It's as safe as you make it.
Thank you, Lonnie. Our next question, one of our students would like to know, what is the average base salary of being a professional diver? And I'm hoping we can get a couple answers as we have some different jobs here.
I can start off on that. In my realm of diving, the base salaries are very, very low. Divers at New York Aquarium make in the 40s and 50s in terms of thousands of dollars. Work that I've done in the recreational industry also pays very, very low. So I think folks should understand it's a fun job, but a lot of the people that go into this field do not make a lot of money. And often people also need to travel a bunch in order to build their careers up. So it's super fun. And some people do really well with it, but a lot of people do not do very well with it financially, though they do often get to really love what they do with their jobs.
From my perspective, there's two career paths as a diver. Kind of where I live is one's the engineer diver. So I'm an engineer first, and then I was trained to be a diver, and so that's kind of consistent with a lot of civil engineering and structural engineering salary structures, starting in probably somewhere between 50 and 75,000 per year. There's also the commercial diving aspect of it, where you are building things underwater. And again, that is very lucrative. It's actually a very well-paid career path. The only problem with the commercial diving, it's not really a problem, but there's, when a job ends, you have to find the next job. They don't always keep you on staff. So you're working, everything is great, and then when the project ends, you got to find another job to move on to. Not the companies don't normally just retain you unless you're working on a project. But it's different from the engineering side, where engineering companies will keep you on to do other things aside from just diving.
In the movie industry, the jobs are almost the exact same as commercial diving jobs. You work on a movie and it shoots for 6 to 12 weeks. Then you're looking for your next job. The advantage of the movie industry is the second you build a name, you can exploit that. I know there are cinematographers and videographers who make $3,500 a day. As a safety diver, I was making $1,000 a day. If I were to try doing that full time, I can't imagine I'd be working more than 100 days a year.
Great. Thank you. And then our final question is, what is one piece of practical advice you can give our students that are looking to go into the professional diving industry?
I'm going to quote Mike, a coworker of Mike's and mine, and that's a guy named David Slade. I learned as much from him as I hope he learned from me. He had a couple of great phrases, and one of them was one speed safe, and two is one, and one is none.
I'd say for me, like the best piece of advice, and I got it from Lenny himself, is communication. A lot of times you always tell us to say everything we need to out loud so everybody hears, and a constant feedback of back and forth because it's a team aspect. So everybody has to put in their say. So it's a lot about communication, saying what you have to do, which builds not only in the diving world, but just in general, because excuse me, by having great communication with the people around you, there's more trust and procedures can be made quicker and faster.
I would say be a sponge, right? Like when you get on new crews and or a new job, look around you at the experienced folks around you and listen to what they have to say because they have more experience than you. It doesn't mean what you have to say isn't valuable, but you can learn so much by just listening to the people around you and learning from them.
I can say similar to what Mike said is that be open to learning and doing new things. I love being part of this program that I still talk about it to this day, that it's taught me so many things and like public speaking, confidence, teamworking, communication skills, and to the point where I have multiple connections in different states that if I want to go scuba diving or if I want to do something fun, I have all these people that have taught me so many great things over the past couple of years. I think it's a really unique opportunity that New York Harbor High School has at this school that no other school has. When I speak to my coworkers or even my family that doesn't know how to swim, like, oh yeah, I used to scuba dive off of Governor's Island, they would be like, what are you talking about? Like nobody goes in there. And I think it's so cool, all the things I've done within these 6 years because of scuba diving. And I thank this program and all the close family, I would say, that I met at high school that I now have and learned so many new things in. And I don't know, it's a cool program to be part of. And I'm really happy that I was part of it in high school.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'll add one for myself, I guess. It's a little bit more general, but Lenny once told me that like imitation is the greatest form of flattery. And I've gotten to like connect that to diving. And it's more so like never be afraid to watch what someone else in diving is doing, ask them questions about what they're doing and try it yourself. And also to like be proud when someone follows what you're doing. It can be kind of difficult seeing like 15 other students do the same thing as you, but there's so many different paths of diving and just like different attitudes towards it that it can be really helpful to just like keep an eye out for what others are doing and get happy when people like what you're doing as well. But on that note, I'd like to end the panel and thank all of our panelists and our audience as well for joining today, and pass it on to Mike now.
Thanks, Gabby. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Joe Kupak, for running the tech behind the scenes. Thank you to the National Science Foundation and the John K. and Elizabeth W. Noor Charitable Foundation for funding these panels. Please take a few minutes to complete the NSF survey that Joe just dropped into the chat. And thank you all for joining us today. We hope to see you in 2 weeks for our next panel, which is focused on marine affairs, policy, and advocacy. So that's it. Have a great weekend.